Okay. Good to see everybody here.
Good to see you, Frank.
I'm proud to see you too. We're going to start our meals. Turn me down a little bit, y'all. Come on. Sound like I'm hollering at folks. I ain't hollering. They just got me too loud. All right. Good to see everybody. Glad you're here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to have the meal from 6 to 6:45 and then have 15 minutes of fellowship before we come into the church, so we'll be ready to go. But then I'm always late, so it don't matter. But I love you tonight. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Got a host of prayer requests that I want you to remember. I want you to pray for Miss Gwen. Remember her in prayer. I want you to pray for Sarah texted me today, and I think that's where they're at. Her grandfather is at Piedmont Hospital in Athens. He's looking to have surgery. They're wanting to put in a pacemaker, I think it is, and they're having a real hard time putting him to sleep. So want you to pray for them, remember them in prayer. Want you to remember Miss Sandy Crocker. Want you to pray for her, remember her in prayer. We just got a lot of folks that need our prayers tonight. There was some more. My brother-in-law, Robbie Black, he's the pastor over at Oak Grove. Want you to remember him. He'll be going in he's got prostate cancer. He'll be going in for surgery on Friday. So remember him in prayer, and remember my sister, remember all them in prayer, and that the Lord will just be with them. Anybody else got a prayer request tonight? Amen. Let's remember that. Amen. Remember that. Miss Darlene?
My neighbor, and I grew up with her, she's got dementia, Parkinson's disease, and they're turning her over to the hospice this week.
Amen. Let's remember that in prayer. Anybody else? Anybody got an unspoken request tonight? All over the house. I want you to be praying for each one of them. We're going to go to the Lord in prayer, and we're going to, Brother Mike, you lead us to the Lord in prayer, and we'll go further with our service.
Lord, we come before you tonight with this thanks for all the blessings you've given us. We ask you to bless all these prayer requests that have touched in your special way. Ask you to bless Frankie, and bring the message. Ask you to keep us safe, for every time we say we live on the Lord, for every night.
Amen. Still too loud, y'all. Work on it right there. There you go. I know I'm getting louder and louder. Bring it down a little more. All right. We'll see how that goes. If I get too loud and y'all think I'm hollering, raise your hand right there. But love the Lord and love the Lord and appreciate everybody being here. Want you to pray. I know what else it was. I want you to remember the rally that's coming up. Pray for it. Pray for the revivals. I want you to, we got a lot of things going on, and so just remember them all. All right, let's turn to the book of James. We're going back to the book of James. We're going to be in chapter number 3. This is the book that has been said that lets us know what gives us the most trouble in our lives. What troubles us the most. There's 18 verses, and we're going to read all 18 verses of the 3rd chapter of James, and then we'll just take it verse by verse, and we'll just take our time and go through it because there's a lot to learn from this. It says, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which, though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm. Whithersoever the governor listeneth, even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a whirl of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessings and cursings. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Doeth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine, figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. Who is a wise man and endured with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. That's reading the whole 18 verses of the 3rd chapter. If there is one area of our Christian life that will prove evidence of faith, it is the tongue. James has a lot to say about the tongue. As a matter of fact, he devoted an entire chapter on this subject. The 1st chapter of James deals with our miseries. Remember, James talks about us going through trials and temptations and hardships. He talks about how we're going to have to endure that. The 1st chapter deals with our miseries. The 2nd chapter deals with our ministries. And the 3rd chapter deals with our mouth. It has been said that the average person speaks 20 to 30,000 words every day. Now, I've never counted my words. I don't know how many I speak. I have no idea about how many, but on the average, they say that a person speaks 20 to 30,000 words every day. And I wrote down, have you ever noticed how many words we say without thinking? How many here has ever, because we're fixing to get into this, and James is going to tell us, and this is just the most politest way I can say, has your mouth ever overloaded you? Mine has. I do it all the time. I mean, listen to me. I have been told that my mouth writes checks that I can't cash. And listen, I'm being honest. James is going to deal with this situation because this is something that gives the church, God's church, people, problems. It is our mouth. We say things without thinking. We say things without any idea of what words can do to other folks. In this study of this 3rd chapter, we're going to dig into it and find out that our tongue can destroy people. It can destroy their testimony. It can destroy their life. Do you know, and we'll get into it, James not only deals with what we say, but how we say it. Have you ever said something in a tone? My wife, and she is a sweetheart, she tells me all the time that I ought to watch my demeanor and watch how I say things. Watch how I say things to people, because I have a bad habit of having this mean look on my face when I say things, and I'm not mad. I've even had folks tell me that when I'm preaching and I get loud or I say things that I am mad, and I ought not be preaching when I'm mad. You can't preach and be mad. You can't preach and hold a gripe or hold a grudge. God's not in that, and we all know that preaching comes from God. So James is going to deal with our tone. Have you ever looked at somebody and they said, "How you doing?" And this is what you said? "I'm all right." That's what James is talking about. How that you look at somebody, or how that you express yourself when you talk to somebody. Because I'm here to tell you, have you ever talked to somebody that did it in the wrong tone or the wrong expression when they told you, and you walked off from them and said, "What's wrong with them?" Now, I know y'all haven't, but I know I have. And say, "I wonder what's bothering them." The way that we use our mouth expresses to a lot of folks how we believe and how our faith is in our life. Right there. And James wants to deal with that. And it says right here, James not only deals with what we say, but how we say it. Hey, listen, I want to ask you something. Do your words hurt or heal? Listen to this. Do your words, are they a delight or a discouragement? When you talk to folks, are you someone easy to talk to, or you're someone that's full of discouragement? What comes out of your mouth lets folks know how you believe. Yeah. And I'm here to tell you, most of the time that you talk to folks, how many of you, now I don't want nobody to raise their hand, but how many of you, when you talk to folks, do you hear very much good things happen? Or the good things? I talked with Brother Bill Byers tonight, and he was thrilled to death. He had a testimony, and I'm going to get him to share it with you this coming rally, at our rally. He got real sick, got put in the hospital, and almost lost full use of his kidneys. And they got him on the right medicine, and they sent him home. And then all of a sudden, they just said that, you know, that we're going to send you home, and maybe that you can get better. And they sent him home, and he told me, he said, "Preacher, they sent me home, and I was in the bed praying." And he said, "Man, felt like God just got in the bed with me." And he said, "He touched me." He said, "I'm a different person." He said, "I've been saved a long time," but he said, "I really got a touch." And he said, "I know a lot of folks ain't going to believe that, but he says, I know you'll believe me when I tell you that God touched me that night." And he said, "Now I feel like I can drive. I feel like I can go. I can do." And he says, I'm coming back to church." So Brother Bill, with his words, he inspired me. Man, I almost teared up right there in the fellowship hall, listening to him be so excited. So is your words, when you express yourself, are they a delight or discouragement? When you talk to somebody, are you compassionate or critical? Compassionate or critical? There is an old childhood saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." That's not true. There are people hurting right now because of words. There are churches divided because of words. There are people going through depression right now because of words. There are families that are torn apart because of words. Marriages that have been split because of words. There is one truth about words we speak. Once we have spoken them, we can never get them back. Once they come out, they're there. Somebody come up, this Einstein of a person, come up with this thought. He had to be the smartest man in the world. He says, if you think it, you might as well say it. What a goofball. I wouldn't want him to drive my truck. Why? Because your mind, and I just want to put it, it's where the devil spends most of his time. And I'm here to tell you, you don't want to know what I'm thinking sometimes. And I don't want to know what you're thinking sometimes. So what James is going to deal with is getting us to use our minds and our thoughts before we let it come out our lips. How many of you have ever heard those saying, open mouth and insert foot? That's the reason so many Christians are not getting any closer to the Lord, because they got their foot in the mouth and they can't get they can't get there. I'm just being honest. This is not going to be easy tonight, because our words have a lot to do with the way we have service. I'm being serious. Let's go further. Proverbs 6. I want you to look with me. Proverbs 6. And we're going to look at 16 through 19. Proverbs 6, and let's look at 16 through 19. I didn't write this down. I felt like it would be better for me just to read it to you. All right, we're going to look at 16 through 19. Listen to this. These 6 things doeth the Lord hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A heart that devises wicked imaginations. Feet that be swift in running to mischief. A false witness that speaketh lies. And he that soweth discord among the brethren. I wrote this down when I was reading this, and this is what the Lord showed me. If we were wise Christians, we should want to know what our Lord hates and do our best to stay clear of them. No other place in the Scripture do we have a more clear declaration of what bothers the Lord. What bothers the Lord. Out of the 7 things, 3 of them are directly related to the mouth. Listen to what it says. The first one, the Lord hates a lying tongue. A lying tongue. Now, I don't think the Lord can be no more clear than what he's being right here. He's allowing Solomon to write this down. He says, I don't like when you tell lies. Listen. And then he says the second one is a false witness that speaketh wise. That's when you say things that you know are not true. James said we need to quit doing that. We need to quit being a false witness. And then the third one is he that soweth discord among the brethren. Man, you know what the Lord hates? Is a troublemaker. A troublemaker. James is saying, if you know something about somebody, instead of spreading it around, why don't you just take it to the Lord? Why don't you talk to him about it? Now, I love y'all, and I don't know how y'all do or what. They won't let me have Facebook because they're scared of what I'll say on it. And it's probably a good thing. My wife or my sons, both of them, do not trust me with it. They say, Daddy, you'll be said something one day that'll get you in more trouble than we can get you out of. And they'll tell you that to your face. But listen to me. These 3 things, 3 out of the 7 things that God hates has to do with our mouth. If we could just clean up our mouth, we would be close to getting to where God wants us to be. If we could just clean this up. How do you clean that up? Well, listen to me. Quit lying. If you know it's not the truth, don't say it. Boy, this ain't going to be a shouting time tonight. Listen to me. And the second one is being a false witness that speaketh lies. And the third one is sowing discord among the brethren. Nearly half of these things God hates as to do with the tongue. God does not hate the tongue. God give us our tongue to do special things. To sing praises unto Him. To share testimonies with other folks. To use it for His honor and His glory. God would have never give you a tongue if He didn't think you could use it in the right way. Listen, I want you to know, in this 3rd chapter, James is dealing with our conversations. Our words, our tones, and our intentions should be constantly monitored by the Spirit of God. If we are not careful, our tongue can cause us much harm. In James chapter, in the 3rd chapter, in verse number 1, James starts off the chapter with a warning. The word masters, when James says in the book of James, when James right here, and he says masters, he is talking to folks that want to become teachers. And listen to me, James is giving the advice about their desire to be in speaking positions. He is saying the more you speak, the more you are subject to criticism. Now, we don't want folks to quit testifying. We don't want folks to quit telling the story of Christ and what He's done for us. But we want folks to stay online. Stick to the truth. We are all guilty of examining the speaker. And this is what James is saying, whether it be politicians, professors, preachers, we immediately begin to critique his style, his body language, and his tone. And let me tell you, there's not a one of us in here that doesn't do that. Hey, some preachers you like because he is low to key. Some people like preachers that are loud and obnoxious, like me. Some people like preachers that just know how to say the right things. Listen to me. James is letting us know the more we speak, the more we're going to be looked at, the more we're going to be talked about, the more we're going to be examined. Do you know when you get up and you tell folks that I'm a child of God and you begin to testify of them that your life is put up under a microscope? How many folks, after you have witnessed to them and told them that you went to church and you love the Lord and you're living for them, that they have looked at you and this is what they said? Well, what are you doing this? Or why are you doing that? Or they always want to kind of look at you a little deeper by your conversation right there. And that's what James is telling these folks. I know it's a good thing to want to be a teacher. I know it's a good thing to want to be up telling folks about the Lord and stuff, but you realize this, that when you start saying it, folks are going to start expecting it. When you say you're a Christian, they're going to expect you to be different from the world. Now, they ain't going to expect you to be perfect. You can tell them that. There's none of us perfect, but listen to me. When they see you on Sunday morning and you're not in church, it gets real quiet, don't it? That's what James has said. When you step up to the plate, you're going to be expected to hit the ball. You're going to be expected to do what you're supposed to do. Listen to me. And I want to tell you something. I don't do a good job at it, not as good as I should. But I should have a better demeanor about the way I say things. When I say things, a lot of times, folks, I do sound like I'm mad. Now, my grandkids have grown up with that. They know about that. I can holler at Maddox, and it doesn't do a bit of good. He has grown up to Paul saying, put that down, stupid. And you say, well, I would never say that to my kids. Listen, he's heard it for 13 years. I mean, it just goes on like water on a duck's back. Now, I would never say that to your kids. But my kids understand that. And listen, when Paul Walker come into our family, when Zach and Mackenzie got married, Walker was real timid. You just have to understand this. And when I would say something to Zach, or when I'd even say something to Logan, that I project the same way, and Paul Logan and Paul Walker, tears would come to his eyes. And I'd have to pull him to the side and say, hey, son, Paul's just talking. I'm just loud right there. Now, he's been there for 2 years. I'm proud of my boy. He's getting to where he's hanging right in there. I can holler at him now, and he's just like the rest of them greens. He just keeps on going. But James is just saying that there's so much that goes with the way we say things. James is saying there's so much the way that we look at folks and talk to them. Listen to it. The more you say, the more you will be scrutinized. People are listening to what we say. I'm here to tell you. Let me tell you, people are listening about the way you talk about your church. People are listening to hear what you say about your preacher and about the deacons and about everything that goes on. And can I tell you, folks would rather hear something, boy, they'd rather hear something good and juicy. Do you know good gossip draws more flies than anything else I know? Folks would want to hear about what's going on. Now, none of us are gossipers. Stop right there. Listen, I wanted to say this. This is what Jesus said, and I want to show you how important it is to watch what we say. In Matthew 12, in verse number 34, O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Then in that same chapter, drop down to verse number 36. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. What Jesus is telling them, that every idle word that we say is being written down. It's going to be brought back to our attention. What James is saying, be careful what you say. The little song that the kids sing, and I hope I got it right, is, oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. And be careful, little mouth, what you say. I'm being honest. And I'm going to, as we get into this lesson, we're going to find out that our mouths can do more damage. Let's talk to married folks a minute. Everybody in here, look at me. Has your mouth ever got you in trouble? Some of y'all need to come on down. We might as well get an altar song right now. Somebody says, well, preacher, listen, have you ever said anything that you wish you hadn't said? Let me say this. Have you ever said anything you had to apologize for? Oh, I hope don't nobody say no. Miss Inez, you're looking at the one man that can say the most wrong of anybody in here. I've got him. I get flustered. I get mad. And Miss Jessica, in 5 minutes, and my wife, when she gets mad, she don't forget. And let me tell you, I'm the type, when I get mad, I'll stay mad for about 5-10 minutes, and then I'm ready to say, I'm sorry. My wife can go a week. And then if things don't go right, could be 2 weeks. I'm telling you. And she had a right to get mad. But come on, she's been married to me for almost 35 years. She ought to realize by now the hinges on my mouth are real loose. I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm being honest. And I know you're laughing, but that's what James is saying. James is saying our mouth gets us in so many difficult situations. And if you've been married for any time at all, maybe y'all haven't. Now I'm proud for y'all. I really am. That's something special. That's something special. But most married folks, the biggest issue that they have is what they say to one another. What they say to one another. Listen. We should take great care of what comes out of our mouth. It is not what goes in a man that defies a man, but it is what comes out of a man that defies him. And you'll find that in Matthew chapter 15 and verse number 11. All right. Let's look at James verse number 3 and 4. Behold, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about the whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. James gives an illustration and picture of what the tongue has the ability to do. The first two illustrations deal with direction. We should carefully observe that the tongue directs our lives. Proverbs 18:21, death and life, listen to this, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Listen to me. In Proverbs, Solomon is telling us, in life, death and life are in the power. You know you can either make something real or you can kill it. You can either help make it alive or you can kill it. Now I'm going to give you an illustration and we'll move on right fast. When we talk to our kids, we can either make church alive or we can kill it in our kids. We really can. Church is, when you talk to your kids, do you make it into a good place or a bad place? Is it an enduring place or an enjoying place? Are you happy to be here or are you just here? See, that's what James is saying, and he is giving us a direction. Our mouth needs direction. We need, as the horse needs the bits in his mouth, we need God to help direct our mouth. You know, I've been praying and I've been asking the Lord to help me say the right things and do the right things. And that's a big job. Because look what he's working with. And I'm being honest, the same with you. There's times that you don't always say everything just right. We're flesh, and there's times that things come out of our mouth that ought not come out of. Let me give you one example, and I'll move on. Have you ever looked at somebody and say, I hate you, on the spur of the moment? Listen to me. You ever looked at somebody real quickly, they made you mad, they did something you didn't like. I hate you. Man, bam, there it comes. Now, I don't know if you've ever done that or not. I really, that's up to you. But I know that the preacher has said that to folks before. And without thinking, it just come out. And you know what? James is telling us we've got to be real careful. We've got to ask God to, he puts the bits in the horse's mouth, to direct our mouth to help us to say the right things. Because see, this horse, it needs direction, and they put those bits in there to make him go a certain way and do a certain thing. And we need God. I need the help of the Lord to help me with my mouth. to help me, not to be more diplomatic, but to be more loving, more kind, and more sympathetic. Let me show you one more thing and then we'll move on. How many of you ever seen somebody in a bad way? And before you could even think, this comes out of your mouth. Well, they deserve what they got. Or they made their bed, now let them sleep in it. See what I'm saying? It comes out. Man, it comes out right there. And you know, in a few minutes, we're going to look at the fruit there. Do you know a lot of times what you say usually comes back home to where you're at? I had a friend of mine. He was a real good friend of mine. Matter of fact, he was somebody I looked up to a whole lot, and I still do. But he had a saying that we went to church together. And he was one of the deacons of the church where we went to. And he got up and he told everybody, John, he said, my kids would never act like that. And he was very vocal about his kids never being corrupt or never be, that would never happen. Well, he went through a real hard time and his kids got out of church. And I remember what the man said. And James is saying we have to be very careful what comes out of our mouth. Because a lot of times what proceeds out of this mouth is what usually comes back to us. Judge not, that you be not judged by your own condemnation. See what I'm saying? That's what James is not mad. He is not tore up or upset with anybody. He just said, I'm trying to save you a heap of trouble. I'm trying to keep you out of the doghouse. I'm trying to keep you to where you'll have some friends. Real quickly, let me go on. Listen to me. Proverbs 19:1, better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. That's just someone that never thinks before he speaks. Proverbs 21:23, whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keepeth his soul from trouble. One preacher said, a man who does not have control over his tongue allows his tongue to have control over him. Our mouth directs our lives. It directs our eternity. James gives the examples of a bit and of a rudder. Look at the bit. The bit is used to give the horse direction. Our tongue needs direction. We need to be careful on how loose we allow our tongue to be. Let me ask you this question. Where is your mouth leading you? Does your tongue lead you to compassion or criticism? Think about it. When you speak about somebody else, is there compassion or the first thing that comes out, criticism? Is there godliness or gossip? Blessings or backbiting? Truth or tattling? Sweetness or swearing? Humility or hatred? Love or lies? What comes out of your mouth? Think on this. There, anyone in your life that has been offended by your words. Next, James gives the picture of a great ship that are directly a helm or a rudder, just like the bit in the horse's mouth. The rudder gives the ship direction. Think about what the ship carries. Think about the graceful structure and design of some of these great ships. And yet the ship would never get to its destination without the proper use of the rudder. Our words have power to move and to motivate. Listen, I want to say that again. Our words have power to move and motivate. I want to ask you something tonight. If you could have a recording of what you said today, would you be ashamed of anything you said? Of anything that come out of your mouth? Or anything that you said about somebody else? Or would you be ashamed of what you said to the folks that you love the most? This is just Frankie and Petey's craziness. I was at home getting ready, and I got up to finish studying, and I told Miss Petey, I said, I'm going down here, going in my office, and I'm going to come up with an idea that's going to make me a millionaire. Yeah, that's what I told her. And she said something. She said, will I be a millionaire? And I said, sweetheart, if I ever get to be a millionaire, you'll be a millionaires. Which means that whatever I get, you got. I'm just being honest. I thought that was very, very funny that she looked at me and she said, would I be a millionaire if you get to be? You know, I kind of thought that she might think I'd be going somewhere if I got to be a millionaire. I don't know where she got that thought from. Listen to me. I'm just telling you. I'm working on this. This is not my prayer, but I would wished I would have said this prayer. But another preacher prayed this prayer. May God, the great governor of our ship, lead us with the word of the Holy Spirit and use the rudder of our life to take us to a place where He wants us to be. May we place our tongue upon the altar and ask God to reveal to us the severity of what we say. Lord, direct our lives by directing our lips. Lord, direct our lives by directing our lips. Listen, in James chapter 3 and verse 5 and 8, even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a whirl of iniquity, so is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. Now this is what James says. It is unruly, evil, full of deadly poison. Listen, I wrote this down. The tongue can destroy more in just a few minutes than we can fix in a lifetime. There was a young girl, this is a true story. I read this in a book that I was able to get my hands on. It said there was a young girl who was a sophomore in high school. She was shy and had a hard time fitting in with the other kids because she was quiet and stayed to herself a lot. Some of the other girls started spreading rumors. In other words, bearing false witness about her. They said she had been with 2 boys and gotten pregnant and did not know who the father was. These words spread like wildfire through the school. By lunch, everyone had heard. None of it was true, but the young girl felt like her world was coming to an end. She was confused, she was hurt, and she felt betrayed. The girls that started the rumor had no idea what it would do to the young girl's life. After months of denying the rumor, it finally settled down. But the story does not end there. The young girl started having panic attacks not long after the rumor started. She isolated herself from her friends. Everyone at school knew now the rumors were not true. But by now, her reputation had been established as being a loose girl. She went through depression and for the next few years contemplated suicide. After a homecoming game, her senior year, she went into her basement, wrote a letter to her family, and overdosed on prescription drugs. Her parents found her in the basement, lying unconscious. They got her to the hospital in time to save her life, but the drugs she had taken had done their damage. She was placed on life support, where she lived for the next 10 years until she passed away. That's how much. That's how much. And the preacher that I got this from said the poison was not in the drugs that she'd taken. Literally, physically, it was. But the poison that killed her come from the tongue. That the folks that had spreaded the rumors that were not true had pushed her over the edge. You know what James is telling us? The tongue is more powerful than any loaded gun. This young girl's life was turned around by nothing more than words. Listen, I'm being honest. James compares our gossip or our words that we say, our idle words, as fire. Fire is one of the greatest discoveries in creation. Man used fire to survive since the dawning of time. When fire is properly controlled, fire is used to prepare meals, warm our homes, and generate energy for life. Yet when out of control, it can burn, destroy homes, and generate the power of death. You say, preacher, what? James is saying that our tongue can start a fire that we can't put out. And I wrote this down, and I know this is a lot, but it went right along with it. On October the 8th in 1871, the Great Chicago Fire occurred. 100,000 people were left homeless. 17,500 buildings were destroyed. 300 people died, and the estimated cost of damage to the great city was over $400 million. Lives were altered, homes were destroyed, and businesses closed. And this is not funny, but this is the sad part. That on Mr. O'Leary's farm, a cow had kicked over a lantern and started a small brush fire. Just a small brush fire. Because the fire was unattended for a long period of time, it reached a point to where it was uncontrollable. It grew and spread until the small flame became a rampant fire. A little lantern engulfed the lives of a great city. It doesn't take much fire to bring about destruction. James said, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Just a spark, listen to this, just a spark of criticism or a small flame of sarcasm can ignite the fire that brings utter chaos. And I want to say this chapter belongs to our church. We have something very, very special here. Not because of the preacher, and not just because you're here, but because God's here, and He has blessed us with a good place to worship and fellowship and to enjoy. I read this, and this was a true story. And I want to read it to you, and I want you to just listen to it and comprehend what the preacher is saying. There was a church about the same size as ours. They were growing, having good services, but they needed some new songbooks. They had been using the old traditional red-back hymn books. No one in the church wanted to change the style of the songbook. They loved those songs. However, some wanted to change the covers. They wanted to go from red to green. Had the same songs in them. They weren't going to change any of the songs. They wanted to keep all the songs. But we're talking about they wanted to change from the red hymn backs that we use to the green ones. Because why? It matched the curtains and matched the carpet. And they thought it would be a little more decorative in the church. So it gets deep right here. So the next conference, the church voted on the color change. 70% wanted to stay red. 30% wanted to go green. So the order was placed for the new redback songbooks. The next week, the ones who wanted green songbooks started calling one another. Before you know it, a feud broke loose. Now we're talking about red hymn books and green hymn books. Hello? Not changing the songs, not changing anything. We're not doing anything different but changing the color of the book. In church the next month, the church lost 45 members. In 1 month, they lost 45 members over to sing out of a red hymnback book or a green one. It can happen. It can happen. This started in another spat in church. Some of the folks that voted for red wanted to get green songbooks now if the others would stay in church. Now, 45 had done left, and the folks that are there, some of them said, listen, brothers, just don't fight over this. If them folks if they got to have green to come to church, let's get green. But when the ones that said that with the folks that were left, they began to argue. If you let them have their way, they'll pitch a fit every time. We're not going to do it. So the ones that were left got in an argument. Dana, they got in an argument. Now listen, this really happened. They got in an argument about giving in to the 45 that left and getting the other songbooks. And the church wound up with another split. That caused another split. The church today is struggling financially, emotionally, and spiritually. And the warning goes out. You think that what happened to this church could not happen to our church? Now, it might not happen over the songbooks because we don't even use them no more. But I know where there's a church right now. I'll never call the name of it. I used to know the preacher there. He was a great friend of mine. They were very prosperous. They had everything going their way. And they decided to build a little fellowship hall. Well, the plan that they had was not a problem. Everybody agreed on the plan for the fellowship hall, and they agreed on it. And it was probably 80% finished. And the only thing they liked was on the decorum on the inside. And all of a sudden they had to pick a color to paint the walls. And the color on the inside of a fellowship hall split a church that never got back up on its feet. That caused the pastor to have to leave. That's what James is talking about when he says that our tongue is unruly and evil and full of deadly poison. Well, you have to be careful. James is telling us, and the reason we're in the book of James is for us to get closer to God. And God is letting us know that we need to be careful what we say. I know, and this worries me, but I have been assured by the folks here that it won't cause any problem. Have you ever been to a place where folks talk more plainer than they do right here? I mean, I told some folks, if you come to our church, you better be ready. Because if you come in and your hair messed up, somebody will look at you and say, you look rough today. Or if you come in and you got on the wrong tie with the suit you got on, and they'll say, who picked that out? That don't go with that. I'm being honest. I'm being frank and honest as I can. It keeps you worried to death that somebody's going to come in. And we are a family-oriented church. I could take families and put some here, some here. There's some families that would fill up 2 rows. There's some families that would fill up 3 rows. There's some families that wouldn't need but a half a row. Now listen to me real good. But it wouldn't take for somebody to say something about one of these families that, you ever heard of the Hatfields and McCoys? To where feud would start in the church. Preacher, that would never happen to us. You blink your eyes and shut your mouth, it could happen before you know it. Listen to me. I'm being honest. It worries me sometimes that we're so plain and we're so bold and we're so frank with one another that somebody's going to say something one of these days and somebody's going to cross the line and we're going to have to pray our way out of it. And you know what happens and what really worries me is this, that so many folks think that it could not happen. Let me explain something to you, and then we'll go home. James is reminding us in this 3rd chapter that our tongue is like a fire. It can spread faster, and just like in Chicago, it can burn up more and tear up stuff faster than you can realize. James is asking us to be careful with the bit in the horse's mouth and the rudder on the back of the ship. He is asking us just to kind of ask God to direct the things that we say. To be careful. To be careful. To be very thoughtful of what you do say. Because it can cause a lot of hurt. Listen, whether you'll know it or not, I keep up with how many folks we have. Shane gives me a head count every Sunday. I don't do it, but I love to keep of what. Don't worry. I even ask Donnie how much money we take up every once in a while. Why? To make sure that we're still able to pay our bills and that we're capable. I don't ask him to give me an amount. I just look at him and say, are we still above water? And that's what I do. I'm going to tell you, Sunday was not it being any special Sunday at all. We were 3 people away from clicking 160 folks. Now, this church has been there before. This church has probably had that many before, back years ago. I'm not patting me on the back or anything, but that's a blessing from God. But when I come, there were 7 folks here. I wonder what happened. I wonder what happened. Wonder what went on. Wonder where the difference was. I'm telling you, as quick as God has added to it, our tongues can take away. When we start thinking more of ourselves than of others, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And I'm just telling you, I worry about me. Brian, you hadn't known me for a long time, but you can ask any of them. My foot stays in my mouth almost all the time. Not about biblical stuff, not about Bible, but I'm about being me. Sometimes I try to be too funny. Sometimes I say too much. And listen to me, I'm being honest with you. Last Sunday, what was it? Anyway, I think it was Sunday night. Misty was sitting back there, and she was talking. That's what she always does, right there. So, but I'm being honest. And I looked back there, and I seen her, and I just blurted out her name, and I said, these folks are going to join our church. Do you know, when I got in the car, that shouldn't happen? I'm being honest. And I let her know. Hey, listen, I was just being funny, cutting up. See, that's what I'm being so honest with you. We live on the edge. And we have to be very loving and careful of each other that we don't say anything. That we don't say anything that would give the devil a leg to stand on against us. James says, you don't know how fast things can turn around. Said it's like a wildfire once it starts. You have seen in California and these other places where wildfires start and how much damage a wildfire can do. That's the same thing James is talking about in the church. And somebody said, it can't never happen here. Listen to me. It could already be smoldering and you not even know it. Could be already brewing and you not know it. So in the book of James, the first part of this chapter, we learn how deadly our mouths are. I love you. Now, don't smile at me. There you go. I would tell you to stick your tongue out at me, but that wouldn't get it done right now. I love you tonight. And I know this is not a very popular thing, but churches need to hear this. Churches need to hear that we don't need to be popping off at the mouth about everything. We need to be careful. We need to be very thoughtful. We need to have our minds on how we think about each other. And if you wouldn't want nobody saying it about you, then you ought not say it about somebody else. Okay? Love you. Remember now, Brotherhood, Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. We'll be eating breakfast here at the church. You come, best breakfast in town. So you come be with us, and I'm sure the Lord will bless you. Sunday morning, Sunday school at 10 o'clock, worship hour at 11. I want you to remember that. Rally is just a couple of weeks away. And so you remember that. And listen, I want you to be praying. I need your help. There's a lot of things coming up. We had talked about the Wednesday before the rally of coming and cleaning. But I just want to let you know, if we call off church that night, then the next Wednesday, August the 4th, we have been asked, I've got a preaching revival over at Mount Sinai. Brother Justin has asked if the choir could come. Brother Glenn said he thought it would be all right to get the choir. So that would be 2 Wednesday nights in a row. We'd have to call off church on Wednesday night. I do not want to call church off on both. Now, I'm going to leave it up to y'all about August the 4th. The ones that want to go sing, I don't want to make you feel like it's a priority that you have to go. But the Wednesday before the rally, we're going to meet, and here at the church, we might not have a meal, but I want you to pray that we do things that would be good for everybody. Good for everybody. And so I need your prayers. I want you to pray for me that I'll just do the right thing that would be good for everybody. Because these kids, I don't know, they're starting to get back on the band. They're starting to come back. And last week we had 4 more, but then we missed a Wednesday night. And then when we missed it, those 4 wasn't back on there. So I just want you to pray. I don't want to leave nobody out. And so we're going to work this out. We're going to make sure it works and for the benefit of the church and everything. And you remember that in prayer. And I'm going to get with the deacons, and they're going to help me make these decisions. So that way, when everybody gets mad, there'll be 7 other folks standing there with me right there. So.
We have a meeting at 5 o'clock Sunday about the Christmas boxes, and this is about the items that are going in and the help we need. And, we need people to help fill the boxes. Buy the stuff to put into the boxes. We've got, several months to work on it because we probably want to get it finished by the end of September. But we come up with a list and talk about that. 5 o'clock Sunday.
All right, remember that. Anything else? All right, stand with me. All right, Miss Birdie, you pray for us.